Today on the Twin Cities Business Show, we talked to somebody who went from sleeping in a janitor's closet to building a real estate empire in Minneapolis, where downtown is going, and more. I'm Charlie Ryback, and today we're talking to Hempel Real Estate CEO Josh Krsnak. I'm Charlie Ryback from Twin Cities Business, here for the Twin Cities Business Show today with Josh Krsnak from Hempel Real Estate. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you work in real estate.
Do.
Growing up, little kid, was that a lifelong dream? Were you 7 years old being like, I want to work in real estate one day?
No, it's kind of funny. So I had this buddy in college, actually was from my hometown, and he had an internship in the Twin Cities. And I said, what are you doing? He's working. He goes, I'm working at CB Richard Ellis. I said, never heard of it. I go, what do they do? He goes, well, I'm an intern in commercial real estate. I go, what's that? Is that like billboards? Like I thought commercials on real estate.
Oh, nice. Yep.
And I was like, that's literally what I thought commercial real estate was. And I was a junior in college. So that's how little I knew about this business. I wasn't very smart. And so it took me a long time to get my arms around it.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up from Rochester.
Okay. What high school?
John Marshall.
Oh, go Rockets.
Yeah, impressive. Yeah.
I've got a high school mascot thing.
Do you really?
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Then I have family that went to Mayo and Century.
Oh,
so
that's competition.
I run deep in some Rochester circles.
Yeah.
I won't get into it too much.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're at Rochester. And where do you go to college?
Went to the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
Public school boy.
And then you get your internship?
No, so I went to school to be a doctor. I'm from
Okay.
Mayo Clinic. My mom worked at Mayo Clinic. My dad worked at IBM, typical Rochester family.
Mm-hmm.
And went to school to be a doctor. And so I took my pre-med classes. I'd finished almost all my pre-med classes. And I volunteered at the YMCA. They had this like big buddy, little buddy program.
Okay.
And it was on Tuesday nights I'd go and we'd meet and then we'd take our little buddies out on the weekends and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a funny story about that too. But I was going to the YMCA and on the way there, it was 7:00 at night. It was kind of dark out. I saw someone get hit by a car on their bike. And I saw him, he hit his head on the curb. Mm. And he ended up having convulsions and seizures. It was terrible, terrible. Found out later it was someone in my group in the YMCA program. I didn't know at the time.
Oh.
But I remember driving by that and I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. And I got sick to my stomach. I got that weird taste in your mouth when you see something terrible. And I was like, goodness, I could never be a doctor if this is how I'm responding to this. I learned later that trauma is like, that's difficult for you to see, for most people. And then by the time you become a doctor, it's, pretty normal. But it changed my trajectory. And so I think I was a sophomore in college. That's when I was a sophomore. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. So I decided I was going to apply to the Carlson School and get a finance degree.
Okay.
And the thought was, well, as a doctor, it's probably not a bad idea to have some understanding of business.
Mm. So you're still straddling the fence at this point.
And so I was. And so then I applied to Carlson, got in my junior year, and changed my major from biology to finance.
Okay.
And then I got a job at Honeywell as an intern, doing all finance stuff.
Okay.
And I was like, God, this is kind of good. And I had to make a decision. Do I take the MCAT? Do I just kind of see where this finance takes me? And so I said, well, I can always take the MCAT, or so I thought. And so I decided to go with the finance degree. So then coming out of college, I got a job offer. I had 5 job offers. There was like Ameriprise, Accenture, or it was Anderson Consulting at the time, Honeywell, and 2 others, I don't remember. And I took the highest paying one. That's my decision. Like, who pays me the most?
Yep.
$45,000. Like, that's a big salary. It's 2001, right? And so I took the job at Accenture. And I was there for about 4 months. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Like, I didn't like corporate America. I was a finance guy, but it was, 2001. So the economy was pretty soft.
Yep.
And so they put me in this department where I was doing like database management and website design stuff. I'm a finance guy, right? I'm like, this is not my cup of tea. So I go to work every night or every day. And then every night I'd stay after work and I would either read biographies on people that are wealthy, because I was like, I want to be wealthy one day.
Yep.
Or I'd read IRS tax codes because I was like, I understand the IRS.
2 famous, popular pieces of literature.
Yes. Yeah.
What was the most influential biography?
Gosh, I don't know if there was one that sticks out. We're at a bunch on John Rockefeller.
Okay.
I kind of went back to the old times, someone Vanderbilt. Just kind of looking back, like, what did these guys do to become so wealthy? What I found out, the Barons, right?
Yeah.
What I found out, kind of through my studies, was everybody had some sort of investment in real estate.
Okay.
So then I started reading the IRS tax books. I'm like, why do people want to own real estate? And I found out there's all sorts of, depreciation benefits, deductions that you get for owning real estate. So I was like, oh, that seems like a pretty good idea. So then I was like, all right, I'm gonna get into real estate. But I can't just quit my job because I just bought a house. I had student debt.
Yep.
And stuff. So I was like, I'm going to buy a duplex, and that's going to be That's
your part of start of your John Rockefeller story.
Yeah, right. And so I realized I didn't have any money to buy a duplex, and the only way I could get enough money is I could save up for 3-4 years. I was like, I'm impatient, so that's not going to work. So I was like, well, if I become my own real estate agent, I can use my own commission as my down payment, and I can use that to buy my duplex.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it all started.
Okay. So if you're looking to get into real estate, try to become a doctor, read the IRS tax code, and then you're there.
Yeah. It's a very circuitous path. But what happened was, I'm going to get my license. And this is where I met John Hempel, the founder of our company.
So tell us more about your relationship with John Hempel, the start of the company, and just your whole time together.
So I go to this class. Everyone's there to learn how to be a residential real estate agent. Which days to hold an open house. How do you prospect for buyers and sellers? John's there because he started a real estate company, but he didn't have a real estate license. It's kind of an important part of having a company.
Feels essential.
Yeah. And so he had a partner that held the license, but that partner, they'd been open for like 9 months, and that partner quit.
Okay.
And so John's there by himself without his license. And he decided, I got to take a class to get a license. Well, I was there to buy a duplex.
Okay.
And so we just started talking in class because we were the only two there that weren't there to learn about holding open houses.
And how old are you at this point?
23.
Okay. So you're 23 in a real estate class, meeting a guy who's sort of semi-legally running a real estate company.
That's exactly right.
Got it.
Yeah. John's 31. I'm 23. And we did the night class because he had to run his company during the day or, try to run a company during the day. And I had to work at, it was Accenture at this point. So we go from 6 to 9 every night. And it was I think a 6-week class or something like that. Okay. And on the second week of class, John and I got to talking. He's like, hey, I got an idea I want to run past you. I was like, I'm all ears. He's like, do you want to grab breakfast? Next Tuesday? Sure, where? He goes, Minneapolis Club. It's like, I think I know where that is. It's across the street from where Accenture was located downtown. He goes, yeah, meet me there at 7 o'clock.
Okay, so 23 years old, going to breakfast 7 o'clock at the Minneapolis Club, reading the IRS tax code.
Yep.
I'm painting a picture.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yep.
I'm ready for this. So we go to the club. I'd never been there. I couldn't afford to be a member there. I certainly couldn't afford to have breakfast there. And breakfast was almost $20. And so we sit down, and we weren't there more than 15, 20 minutes. And this older gentleman comes walking in. And John's like, do you know who that is? No clue. He goes, that's Carl Polat. Still no idea. No, not ringing a bell.
And this is what year?
This is 2002.
So he's been owning the Twins for a while at this point. Yeah.
Clearly I'm out of the...
You were reading the tax code.
Yeah. Not in the loop. And he's like, well, here's the story. Carl he's a big real estate guy. He owns this company called United Properties, very successful developer in town. So that's cool. He owns banks. And of course, the biggest one's the Minnesota Twins. It's like, wow, that's cool. Hey, Carl. And so we're sitting there, and he goes, here's the story. He goes, I started this company about 9 months ago. My partner left, and I'm just here on my own. And I'm looking for a new partner. It's like, you seem like a pretty sharp young man. Wondering if you want to be my partner. I said, well, sounds good. I'm certainly trying to get into real estate. But I said, I got one problem. I just bought this house, got the student debt. I got to pay for my car, insurance, all that. Mm-hmm. He goes, so how much can you afford to pay me? He goes, well, that's my problem. I don't have any money, so I can't pay you anything. I was like, well, okay, I'm listening. There's got to be more here.
Compelling pitch.
Yeah, right. But he goes, I'll give you 20% of whatever we make. Well, okay. So what do you think we're going to make that first year? Right. And he goes, well, I think we'll make about 300 grand. So if you came on board, you get about $60,000.
That's pretty good. So boost on your 45.
Yeah. 33% increase. I'm like, all right, now I'm listening. And so what would I do? He's like, you're just going to be my right-hand guy. Just help me with whatever. And I go, what are we going to do? And he said, well, we're going to buy these office buildings. We're going to fix them up. We're going to, get some investors, get some tenants, and put some lipstick on it and turn around and sell it. And, I would build a little real estate empire and see where it takes us. So I'll tell you what, let me call my old man, chat with him. And why don't I call you back or talk to you at class tonight or whatever I remember I said, I'll get back to you shortly. So I remember I walked out of there, called my dad, said, Dad, here's the story. And what do you think? And he goes, well, the only question he had of me, which I thought was interesting, he goes, do you trust him? And at age 23, you kind of trust everybody, right? Yep. And I was like, oh yeah, totally trust this guy. I had known him for like 2 weeks in my real estate class, right? From 6 to 9.
Right.
And now I've had breakfast with him. So I've seen him 2 different times of the day. And both times he was very, very trustworthy. He's like, well, if you trust him, now is the time in your life to do this. Okay. And so then I was like, all right, so what about my mom? I better call my mom. So I call my mom, tell her the same story. She's like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And
so she's the most sensible one.
Yeah. And she's like, absolutely not. And I'm like, why not? She's like, well, that house you just bought, remember, we co-signed on that loan with you. And if you're going down, you're not going to take us with you.
She's looking out for herself. Yeah.
Well, I've got 2 younger brothers at home. She's got family to take care of, right?
I get it.
So I was like, well, Dad said I could, so I'm going to. And so that next day I called up John and I said, okay, I think I'm going to do this because I'm going to send you a contract. So he sends me, emails me a contract, I think he faxed it to me, and over at Accenture. And I remember I tried to negotiate it with it. He declined all my edits.
You're 23. I get it.
Yeah. And he's like, no, just what it is what it is. Found out later, John was a very good negotiator. And so we signed the agreement, and I started with him on July 8th of 2002.
2002.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the first year didn't go so well.
So so he said maybe $300,000. How much did you guys make?
Well, let's put it this way. I didn't make 60. I didn't make 16. I made $8,000.
$8,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So your mom, you were like, all right, baby, she had a point.
Yeah. And it was a problem because my mortgage was $1,200. My student debt was $400. I had to have gas and insurance and all that stuff. And my monthly burn was like just over $2,000 a month.
I think you have a math problem on your hands.
Yeah, I do. And that's not going to get you very far. And so the one thing I did right or wrong is I just bought this house. I took out a second mortgage on it. Now remember, this is 2002. These are what they had, the ninja loans. Those are loans they called no income, no job, no problem, right?
Yeah.
Well,
those are the ones that were essentially scams, right?
Essentially, right? That was the time.
Right.
So I went to a bank and said, hey, I want a home equity line against my house I just purchased. And like, oh yeah, we'll give you an extra $16,000. Now I had bought it with an FHA loan, which was 97% leveraged already.
Okay. Yeah. For our listeners, 97% leverage means...
Yeah, if you buy a house for $100,000, $97,000 of that is debt.
Yep.
$3,000 of it was your own equity.
Got it.
Which is pretty close to the economics of what I bought there.
Yep.
Then I pulled out another $16,000 on top of it. So now I'm way upside down on this thing, right? Well, that proved to be both smart and a burden for me because now I had 16 grand plus I made 8 grand. So I made enough money, $24,000 to basically kind of get me through a year, which was, real estate's a get rich slow game. There is no fast money in this business. If you're doing the stuff that we're doing, it's not, it takes years. I've been working on projects. I worked on for 10 years before I make a penny off of it.
Yeah. So skipping ahead, where do you guys turn the corner? Where's the breakthrough?
Well, here's where I ran into problems. So I'm tracking my dollars and I have this spreadsheet and it tracks every single dollar I spend. And I get down to a point where it's calculating my burn rate, basically how much I burn per day.
Okay.
And I got down to, on this spreadsheet, where I had 63 days left till I was completely bankrupt. At 63 days. And desperate times, desperate measures. And so I'm like, the only thing I can do is try to get rid of this house.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't because I've borrowed more than what it was worth.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what a short sale was. And my whole theory in life has always been if I borrow money, I pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's true or not for most people, I don't know. But I always said, borrow money, pay it back. So I couldn't not pay out the bank, but I didn't have the money to pay back the bank. So I couldn't sell the house. So I was stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm just going to rent it out. Well, $1,200 mortgage. I rented it out for $900.
Okay.
So now I'm losing not $1,200 a month, but $300 a month.
Where'd you live?
Well, that became the problem.
Okay.
I had no place to live. And I didn't tell anybody this. No, literally nobody knew. Okay. But we had an office building that we were managing. We didn't own it, but we managed it for this guy. And that's where our office was. The deal was if we managed this guy's building, he'd give us free office space.
Okay.
Okay.
Where is it?
This is in Plymouth, Minnesota.
Okay.
Right off Rockford Road. Little 19,000 square foot building. And what nobody knew was I would always work every night because I had nowhere else to go because I didn't have any money to do anything. I couldn't go out with my friends. I couldn't go to the bar. I mean, I had nothing, right? And so I just work. Well, Alan, the janitor, would come and he'd vacuum around my chair, empty my waste paper basket, kind of around 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. He'd go put his vacuum away, put his mop bucket away, and go home. When he went home, I then went in the janitor's closet, and that's where I slept. And I slept there until about 5 a.m. So from 1 to 5, I'd sleep there. Because I had to get out of the janitor's closet before the rest of the building. I mean, it was a multi-tenant little office building. And I could be coming out of the janitor's closet at 8 in the morning looking all disheveled. So I'd have to get up and I'd go out to my car, drive down to the YMCA, and take a shower, go back to work.
So how long did you sleep in the janitor's closet?
About 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what got you out?
We closed a huge deal. And I got my 20%, $31,000.
What was the deal?
We represented a family on a 1031 exchange. We basically helped a family buy a little shopping center up in Otsego, Minnesota.
Wow.
And we got a commission, about $150,000 commission. I got my 20% and got $31,000.
You're like, I'm moving out of the closet.
I've never felt wealthier than I felt at that moment.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. And I took my check, $31,000 check. I mean, that's a big check. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Even today, that's a big check.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, there was a little US Bank branch next door. We shared a parking lot with our building.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go over there every day to check my balance. Because at that time, online banking wasn't really much of a thing. And there was this really cute teller that worked over there, blonde gal that I always kind of fancied. And I remember I went over there and I slid her my $31,000 check. I said, I'd like to cash my weekly paycheck, please. And I'm thinking this girl is going to light up and I'm king of the world, right?
She's seen your balance the last 6 months.
That's the problem. I didn't realize it. I was like, because I sent it to her and it's just nothing. Not like, wow, or, oh, wow, good for you. Or, hey, I'm Sally or whatever, right? Just nothing.
Can't lie to those bank tellers.
Later, someone pointed out to me, like, Josh, she clearly can see your account. And it had $6 left in it. And it's only been going down.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I cashed that check. And now this is, early 2003 now.
Mm-hmm.
And the world's picking up steam. Capital starting to flow into real estate again. And things start going really well. Mm-hmm. And in 2005, I believe it was, we bought our first high rise in downtown St. Paul.
Okay. What building?
It was called UBS Plaza at the time. Okay. It was actually called Piper Jaffray Tower, which became UBS Plaza. And then in 2006, we bought what is now the Hotel Minneapolis. It was called the Midland Bank Building. We've also, in 2007, we bought the Sioux Line Building. 2008, we bought the Rand Tower. And so within a period of 3 years, we owned 4 really big buildings in Minneapolis. I mean, these are little mini skyscrapers in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And we're top of the mountain. I'm like, God, this is easy.
So 2008, top of the mountain.
Oh, couldn't have been a better time.
Yeah.
Life is going well. I've got a house I'm living in again. The company's growing. And then, of course, the crash comes. Mm-hmm. And we defaulted on about $110 million in personal guarantees.
Wow.
Now I'm, whatever that math is, I'd be 30 years old.
So what does that do? So at that point in time, are you like, I can get back? Or are you like, that was it? That was my shot? Or what are you feeling? What's in your head at that point?
It all happened so fast. And I remember I started getting these like letters from attorneys, basically lawsuits from banks saying, you owe us all this money. We're going to come after you. And at the time, you're just trying to stay above water.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not married. I don't have any kids. My student debt is paid off at this point.
Mm-hmm. You had the duplex, though.
No, I never bought a duplex.
Oh, okay.
Well, I bought a duplex many years later, but I certainly didn't buy it at that point. And life is going pretty well, and then it just comes to a complete halt. And it taught me that a few things. One, as soon as things are going really well, watch out.
Yeah.
Because it can change on a dime.
Mm-hmm.
But the second thing I learned is, 5 years earlier, I was living in a closet.
Yeah.
Like, this is not that bad.
Yeah. Right.
And so we started working with all the banks and started getting negotiations going. And we never lost a building. We never lost one. We did what's called a discounted payoff. So we go to the banks and say, listen, I can't pay $30 million, but I can. Here's a perfect example. I had one. I owed the bank, it was at $17,250,000 is what I owed the bank. I won't say which bank. And I said, guys, we can't pay that. But would you take a discount? And they said, well, we'll get back to you. They come back to me and they said, well, we'll sell you the building, basically forgive your loan, if you pay us $6 million in the next 2 weeks, $7 million in the next month, or $8 million if it takes you 2 months.
What an interesting game.
And their whole thing was, let's try to get this off our balance sheet as fast as possible.
Right.
I learned later they had written it down to $4 million. So they owned them 17, but they'd written it down to $4 million. So anything over 4 was profit.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had one partner in the deal. It was John Hempel, me, and one other guy. And funny story. I tell this guy, I'm like, and we're all guarantors on the loan. Mm-hmm. We owe the bank $17 million. It's worth much less than that. And I told my partner, I was like, hey, we can get this thing for like $6 million. And but we have to pay him off in like 2 weeks. And he was a wealthy guy, and his dad was much wealthier. And I'm like, let's call your dad and see what we can do. I'm like, I think it's worth more than $6 million. It's got to be worth more than $6 million. We just bought the building like 24 months prior for $23 million. Mm-hmm. So it's worth more. It didn't fall that far.
And you're 30 at this
I'm 30
again. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 30 years old. And so he calls his dad. And his dad's like, $6 million. I go, that's going to take me, it's 2000 now. It's 2009. Like I can't move that kind of money that fast. He's like, well, just see what you can do, Dad. His dad calls back and honest God truth. Dad calls back maybe an hour later. Said, I found 2 checking accounts I forgot I had. Both have $6 million in them.
Wow.
He goes, what's our deal? His dad's a business guy, right? He's like, what's our deal? So he struck a deal with his dad. And they went back to the bank. And he said, guys, I'm really sorry. I can't get $6 million. I get 5.5 just to see what I get out of them. Like, that's fine. See you next week. Click. And so we go and we buy the building for $5.5 million from them.
Wow. What building is it?
It's the Sioux Line building.
Oh, okay.
We flipped it 6 months later for $11.5 million.
How?
It was worth more. We bought it, put it on the market. Village Green, an apartment developer came in, bought it from us, turned it into this beautiful apartment building, which we had done it. But they bought it for $6 million or for $11 million. We made $6 million in a period of 6 months.
So then you're kind of back on the tracks. It's 2009 at this point?
This is now 2010.
2010, okay.
Yep. The interesting about that story is he said, I'll buy this building from you for $11 million. Mm-hmm. Because I got one stipulation. So what's that? He goes, you got to get Sioux Line out of the building. Now, Sioux Line, the railroad company, the building was built for U.S. Bank and Sioux Line. They were partners, and they built that building together. This is a predecessor to U.S. Bank.
So you have to get Sioux Line out of the Sioux Line building.
Yes, I have to get Sioux Line. The one condition. So we go to Sioux Line. Say, listen, we got to get you out of this building. This thing. At this point, we hadn't put any money in like 3 years. It was pretty bad shape. Said, listen, we got to get you out of this building. Someone wants to convert this into apartments. And they said, okay, we're interested. They had a lease. The lease had like 7 years on it. Mm-hmm. He said, we'll go anywhere you want in the world as long as it's within 1 block of here.
Okay.
That's a weird thing to say, I said. They said, well, the problem is we run all of air traffic control, but it's rail traffic control for the entire North America, or maybe it was just the United States. But anyway, it was the United States out of that building. So all the rails, everything is monitored out of that building. And they had all this infrastructure in Fifth Street. So like we have to be on Fifth Street.
Got it.
And there's just not that many buildings on Fifth Street.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't know where to put them. And we put the building under contract right next door. It's 510 Marquette, just a nondescript building. Toured them through it. They said, we hate it. We're never going to move here. I said, okay. The other building right next door was called One Financial Plaza. And that building had been foreclosed upon 12 months prior. It's a Great Recession. That building, beautiful building, 20, 30-story building. Deloitte had been in there. Deloitte moved out. Left this big vacancy. The building went in foreclosure. A group called L&R was the master servicer on the project. Now, Sioux Line wanted 100,000 square feet. There's a half-empty building next door. So I said, listen, I don't have control of this building, but let's go tour it. And if you like that building, I'll buy it. No idea how I'm going to buy this building, right? It's not for sale. And so I tour them through it. I talked to the brokers. I'm representing a tenant. I said, I want to show them some vacancy. Yep. Broker's like, sure. How much you need? 100,000 square feet. Oh my God. Yeah. Come on over. Walk them through. And Sioux Line calls back the next day and said, we'll take it. Let's do the deal. We'll move out of this building. We'll move over here. Here are our terms. You have to build out our new air traffic control, but it's literally like less than 100 feet away. Like it's really close. And it's okay. I'll get to work on buying the building. So I call L&R and I'm like, I want to buy your building. Yeah, so does everyone else in town. Get in line. I'm like, I don't think you understand. I want to buy your building. I have a 100,000 square foot tenant. I'll pay more than anybody else will. Don't care. All right, now what am I going to do? So I was like, all right, there's got to be another way to solve this problem. And so I call this guy I know in Chicago. Chuck Johns is his name.
Okay.
I haven't talked to him in 15 years.
How do you know him?
Introduced to us as a broker that could, help us find some equity. I was like, I'm going to buy this building. I got to find equity. But if I'm going to find equity, I've got to find someone that has a connection to L&R because this deal will make sense. I know it'll work. You just don't have that many 100,000 square foot tenants running around in the Great Recession. So I was like, I know we can buy this at cheap enough. I know we can make the math, but I need to have equity, and that equity has to have a relationship to L&R to convince them.
Okay.
So I call this guy, Chuck Johns. He calls this guy named Tim Mackey. Wonderful guy. He runs this real estate division of Elliott Management, a big hedge fund in New York.
Okay.
They're very, very well known if you look them up. And Tim Mackey gets on the phone. He's like, oh, I know the co-CEO of L&R. Let me just make a call. So we tell Tim Mackey this whole thing. He calls the co-CEO of L&R. And I've been calling L&R for, at this point, like for 3 months. Nothing. The guy that I've been talking to who kept telling me to buzz off was literally in my office the next morning. We sat down with them, told them exactly what we're working on, and struck a deal with them to buy the building for $23,710,000. Don't know where we got that number, but that was what we ended up with.
That's where you came.
And at the last second, we found some like minor repairs. So we said, well, we can only pay $23,610,000. We got $100,000 off. That's whatever.
Yep.
And so Tim Mackey comes in and wires us $23,610,000 to buy the building because we had to go fast. And L&R said, like, we'll do it, but you got to buy it. And I was like, less than like 30 days. So we get the deal. He wires us $23,610,000, except for he makes one mistake. His wire department sent us $23,610,000 twice. So now I've got $47 million sitting in my checking account.
Okay.
One is legit for the building. The other is just an oversight. They sent it to us twice. I was like, well, if I ever wanted to be dishonest, now would be a good time to leave the country, right? Of course I didn't. I called them up and said, hey, I think you sent the money to me one too many times.
Where did you think about going? Barbados?
No, I didn't even think. It literally didn't cross my mind.
Yeah.
So we just wired the money back. So we wired back and we buy the building. And Sioux Line moves in there. And it becomes a massively successful project for us. We ended up selling it at the end of the day. We ended up selling it for just over $68 million.
In what year?
2015.
Okay.
And so now, we're back.
You're off to the races.
Yeah. Everything's going great. And then John Hempel gets brain cancer. Stage 4 glioblastoma at the age of 44. And has surgery, doesn't really come out of it. Lives for a couple more years, but he never came back to the office. And then he died. So now I'm sitting here. I got this little company, 9 employees, just had my first baby, and my partner's dead.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh man, it's a rough go. I'm like, closet, doing well, recession, doing well, partner dies. Like, so I was like, okay, well, we're gonna do it again. And that's when we just kind of took off. And, at that point I had family support, baby daughter and little boy on the way, and just put my head down and started grinding.
Wow. So what year are we in now?
Well, I took over running the company in 2012. John got cancer. Actually, I think it was I think he actually got cancer in 2014.
Okay.
And so now we're off and running, and I just started investing in other enterprises. I knew that real estate's it's a cyclical business,
Mm-hmm.
so we started getting into some other businesses, and kind of a fun part of the story. We started a company called Pace Loan Group. This is now in 2016, and I won't get into the details of Pace, but Pace is a green energy financing vehicle.
Okay.
And we get into Pace, becomes a massively successful company for us. And in 2021, the Pohlads call, and they were building the Four Seasons, and built a wonderful building. I mean, the Four Seasons, you've been there; it's great. And the tower they built was beautiful. But as you can imagine, during COVID, costs of things were going up, and they had a little bit of cost overruns. And so our company lent the Four Seasons, which was the Pohlads project, we lent them $20 million.
Wow.
And so it was kind of a fun full cycle because Carl was there at the beginning, and then at the end we're lending the Pohlads $20 million.
So I want to go back for a second. So you go from, you and John start this thing together.
Yeah.
You kind of grow up together in the business. You go through all this stuff. You're probably talking every day to a certain extent.
100 times
many times a day.
We used to have we actually used to share a desk.
Really?
Yes. It was a big, U-shaped desk, and he sat on one side of the U and I sat on the other side of the U.
Wow. So you guys are really tight at the hip, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
What was that moment like for you, and how did you navigate through that? I mean, professionally and personally, that's really jarring. What were those? I mean, what were those days like?
Well, it was obviously really tough. I had never dealt with anyone that had cancer before, and I remember he was at the office. It was a Tuesday, and his wife had called and said, "Hey, honey, how was your day?" And he said, "Oh, don't feel real well." And she said, "What'd you have for lunch?" And he said, "I had a chicken nudie suit." She's like, "What'd you say?" She said, "I got chicken nudie suit." He said, "Well, you mean chicken noodle soup?" He goes, "Yeah, that's what I said." And she's like, "You aren't making a lot of sense right now. I'm going to come pick you up." And so he left. I didn't know he was leaving. And he called me on the way to the hospital and said, "Hey, I'm going to the hospital and something's not quite right." And he goes, "I'll call you later." Okay. Not thinking much of it. Got a cold or something. And they went and did an MRI, and they saw, as he described it, a big lesion on his brain. So he calls me back at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night and said, "Hey, they said I have a lesion on my brain." He goes, it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be an infection or I have a tumor. And he goes, "They're going to do surgery on me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. He goes, "And I'll call you afterwards." And so I was like, "Or have your wife call me." Like, brain surgery is no joke. Unfortunately, I've had 2 brain surgeries in my life now. But they went into the surgery, and they called me. His wife called me afterwards and said, "Yeah, it's stage 4 glioblastoma." And they took out 90% of it. But if you know anything about glioblastoma or brain cancer, you can't fully remove it. I mean, the brain's so integral and everything's all tied together and wraps itself around everything within your brain. I mean, I know very little about brains, but so I go and see him the next morning. They let me go see him, and he was sitting up in bed and he was eating some pudding. And he's like, "Hey, Josh," I'm like, "How you doing?" "Pretty good." And that was John. Like, you could never rattle the guy.
Wow.
No, he had a heart. He couldn't walk. He had to learn to walk again. And he was the smartest math mind of anyone I'd ever met. But I remember one day I was talking to him about Canadian Pacific Plaza, the building that we bought. He's like, "How big is that building? Is that like 1,000 square feet?" I'm like, "That's 393,000 square feet." He's like, "Yeah, that's what I meant." And right then I knew that he'll never be the same because the wires just didn't connect again. And he worked really hard to try to fight it and get back. And I was, I would stop by his house and give him updates on the company. And but yeah, I mean, it was an exciting time in life because I just gotten married. I just had my first baby. The company was starting to grow again. And it was a terrible time because here's my partner that, I'd spent so much. I mean, he's the one that brought me in the business. I mean, the whole reason why I'm here today is because he decided in this class that he wanted to give me 20% of his company.
I mean, the name of the company you run.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, "John, no matter what ends up happening here," I said, I'll always keep that name. It's my honor and my, legacy is your name here. So,
wow.
So anyway, yeah, he ended up obviously passing away. I ended up buying his family out of the company.
Yeah. So then, I mean, how do you move forward from that? And how do you have employees, how do you bring everybody together and even chart a course forward after something like that?
Well, we had some successes coming out of the Great Recession. We never gave a building back. We had negotiated some discounted payoffs. We had some really nice wins. And so we were building momentum. And the company was growing because of that. I think the hardest moment, probably one of the hardest moments of my life, was giving his eulogy. Because when he died, I mean, it was a great showing. There was over 1,000 people there.
Wow.
And they asked me to give the eulogy. And I said, "Absolutely, I'd do that." Never given a eulogy before, mind you. It's very difficult. And I remember I went there to give the eulogy, and his little boys were going up to say something, little 8-year-olds, twin boys, going up there to say something. And the first one, if I remember correctly, read something from the Bible. And the second boy he couldn't read. He just started crying. And he said, "I just missed my dad." And I was like, "Oh, no." And now I have to follow that. The whole place is just dying, just tears and crying. "I just missed my dad."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, how am I going to follow this?" So I go up there and I'm like, "Okay, be strong, be strong." And I knew that what I said at that moment was either going to, basically show this company is nothing left of it because there's no leader, or this company will continue because it's been left in good hands. Mm-hmm. And I gave a eulogy that I practiced obviously for many, many, many hours. And I think it left the message that, hey, we're going to be okay. I mean, I had my bankers there, I had my employees there, I had my investors there, and my family there, my friends there. And I think it did what it was supposed to do.
So in addition to, going through all this horrible emotional stuff, you're feeling a big, huge weight of all these people relying on you.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been incredibly stressful. Where did you feel like you were able to sort of get some relief from that or release? Was there a moment you remember where it sort of started to feel like, okay, we're going to make it?
Yeah. I mean, professionally, there's just a lot of really good things going on. I mean, the company was growing pretty significantly. We had started these sister companies. We started a private equity company. We started this, PACE lending company. We got into the mental health business. We got into the banking business, and we just started getting into all these, I call us real estate adjacent businesses. Mm-hmm. That really were doing well. And I had wonderful partners because of But the reason why they're growing is because of these partners that I had. And that was a good distraction, that and the fact that, now I have my third child on the way.
Wow.
And, it's just, so that's, you kind of don't have a choice. Because like you had two options. You're really just going to, pick yourself up and keep going, or you're going to tip over. And I was like, I got too many people relying on me. Between all the companies now, we have over 1,400 employees.
Wow. Today or then?
Today.
Yeah.
And, all these people that were counting on us to be successful, and, 1,000 investors and a wife and 3 little kids at home. And failure wasn't really an option.
Yeah.
But it all goes down to the fact that, I lived in that closet, and I can't tell you I'm any happier now than I was then. Because you realize it's like the struggle is what life's all about. The challenges. And I'm not saying I'm some profound philosopher on this stuff. I'm just saying I've had some challenges. We all have had challenges. My story isn't probably much different than yours. It's just, it's like we've all had different challenges along the way and how we face adversity. And I'm sure I'll have more. Life's not done with me yet, hopefully. I'm sure there'll be more challenges along the way. But it's the challenge that makes life exciting. It gives you the stories, that gives you something to reflect upon. Listen, I'd rather live in my house today than I'd go back there. But if I didn't have 3 little kids to worry about, I wouldn't probably be that much worse off.
A little cot.
Yeah. I don't really care.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun going out there and doing this. Listen, there's days that are tough, but everyone's got tough days.
Yeah.
And my tough days are probably nothing compared to the real toughness that people have to deal with out in this world.
Yeah.
So I try to keep it all in perspective and just thank God and how lucky I've been. And we built these great companies. We've made a lot of people a lot of money, which has been great. We've served a lot of people in the community. Our food hall. I can't not talk about our food hall, but all the jobs we've created and opportunities we've created for all these people.
Yeah.
It's just.
So let's go back and ahead. Take me to West End.
Yeah.
Take me to that whole project and how it came together and where it got to where it is today, and maybe just contextualize it for folks that don't know the St. Louis Park area as well as maybe others.
Yeah. So the West End is in St. Louis Park, which is, just 3 miles west of downtown Minneapolis, right on 394. We call that the Power Corridor. A lot of businesses are located there. It goes out obviously to Minnetonka and Wayzata. And it's also where 394 and Highway 100 meet. And Highway 100 is coming up from Edina and Bloomington and so forth. And so we saw an opportunity. This is a 15-acre parcel in, basically right outside downtown Minneapolis.
And give me a year.
This is 2022.
Okay. And what is on the 15 acres?
It's West End Shopping Center. And it's, how many restaurants are there now? 15 restaurants, a movie theater, a grocery store, hair salons, fitness studios, you name it. And it's kind of a funny story. It last sold for $155 million. Okay. And we made a bid at like 60, I think it was like 62 million or something like that. Okay. And they said, if we're interested, if you can do it, I think it was 65 or 66. I don't remember exactly. And I said, no, I can't do that. Too much. And we just let it go. And they called us back. This was like in July of 2022. And they called us back. And I'm at Disney World with my kids. I'm sorry, Disneyland.
Okay.
And
were you in the teacups at the time? Or?
No, I was
probably
not.
In line somewhere.
Yeah, I was in line. It's always in line. And this guy calls me. He's like, I'll tell you what, I'll sell it to you. It's for $66 million.
This is less than half of what they had paid for it.
Yes. It's significantly less than it's almost like a third of what they paid for it. But I goes, I need you to go hard on $100,000 non-refundable today. And I said, I'm at Disneyland right now. I don't know if I can make
You're already spending $100,000 at Disneyland,
Yeah. And I remember I got I should show it to you. It's so funny. So I said, let me call you back. And we go and get in line for this roller coaster. It's the Incredibles roller coaster at Disneyland. Okay. So it's
big
twisted
time.
term. Yeah, big time. Big time. It's one of the bigger roller coasters.
Yeah.
And I went with my 2 older children who at the time were like 9 and 7, I think. Okay. And the roller coaster is 4 seats per car. Mm-hmm. Okay. And my 2 younger children are in front of me. And then I'm just in like this car with some random guy next. There's like this random guy, just no idea who this guy is, right? And I remember I took a picture, and it's just me and this random guy. And I go on the roller coaster, and I'm like, I'm going to do this deal. And so I get off the roller coaster.
Did you ask him for advice or anything?
No, didn't even talk to him. No, I have no idea who this guy is. I have a picture of him though. And I texted the guy that said, was representing the shopping center. He was he worked for the company that owned it. And I said, after talking to this guy next to me on the roller coaster, who I don't know who he is, I've decided I'm going to move forward with your offer. And I'll send you the money. And so I wired him the money, $100,000. But I still didn't know where I was going to get the $65 million to buy it. But I figured I'll figure it out. And sure enough, I went and we raised the money. And we bought the shopping center. I remember it was like December 23rd, I think was the date of 2022. I got COVID that night.
Wow.
So I bought the shopping center, got COVID, went into my house, spent my entire Christmas deathly ill in bed, but all the NFL games were on. So I just basically spent
And you got a nice little shopping center.
And I got a shopping center out of it.
How do you go find $60-some million? Like, how does that work? Take us behind the curtain in that. You're like, okay, I'm buying this. I have to go find $60-something million. Like, how does that work?
Well, when you buy something, it's comprised of both equity and debt. Mm-hmm. Debt's usually a little bit easier to find. It all comes down to how much leverage you want to put on there. How much of the purchase price do you want to be as debt? How much do you want to be as equity? Mm-hmm. And but I have relationships with a lot of different private equity firms and hedge funds and stuff like that. So I called up a group that I have a great relationship with and said, here's the deal. I'm hard on my money. Do you want to, non-refundable on $100,000? Do you want to go into this deal with me? And they looked through it and said, absolutely. They said, we'll own 80%, you own 20%. So we'll put up our product share. And I said, that sounds fine. I go, who should we have finance this? And I go, we got this great bank down in Iowa. They'd probably be interested. And I said, who's the banker? And I know the banker. He just had moved down to this new bank. I didn't know he had moved there. And so I called him and said, hey, I want to do this deal. And so they flew or drove up from Iowa and walked through it. And 60 days later, we own the shopping center.
Wow.
So, now we own that. And now we start, what we always do I think is how we've always done it. We just start buying everything around us. Mm-hmm. Kind of like we bought the Sioux Line, then we bought the Rand Tower, then we bought, One Financial Plaza. Those are 3 high-rises all in the same block. Mm-hmm. We do that all the time. So West End, we bought the West End Shopping Center. And then this year we bought an empty office building right next to it. Mm-hmm. And now we're tearing that down. We tore it down already. And now we're building a $93 million apartment project there.
Wow. So when's that going to be done?
That'll be done next winter. So kind of November, December 2027.
Okay. So downtown Minneapolis, you own these 3 buildings together.
Yeah.
And then do you still own any of them?
Nope, sold all of them.
When did you sell them and why?
Well, 2007, I sold bought 2007, bought the Sioux Line. We sold the Sioux Line, I think, in 2010.
Okay. As part of the deal to get
because the apartment developer. And so then I bought the Canadian or One Financial Plaza, put the Sioux Line Railroad Company in there. Sold that in 2015. And then the Rand Tower, we bought in 2008, and I just held it for 6 years and sold it in, I think, 2014. And
so 14 and 15, you sell 2 of them. What was it about that moment that made you say, now's the time to get rid of these?
We completed our business plan. We leased it up. I mean, our job is to buy things, fix them, and sell them. Mm-hmm. We try to buy a building, try to make it a little bit nicer, and then try to sell it for a profit. And more often than not, we do that. And so we were successful in doing that. And when the buildings reached their terminal occupancy, both those buildings were between 96 and 99% leased. There's nothing more I can do. my job's done. And so we turn around and sell.
Okay. So then 2015, you're out of the downtown Minneapolis business.
Yeah, we are.
And then you get back in.
Yeah.
What year?
We bought the LaSalle Plaza in June 30th of 2023.
So what brings you back? So you haven't owned anything downtown in 8 years. 2023, which wasn't the best year downtown for downtown real estate. You come back and like what was it that was like now's the time to do this?
Well, I got a call from a broker and said he said there's this building LaSalle Plaza. Are you familiar with it? Yeah, vaguely. I didn't spend much time in it before. I mean, I clearly knew of it. I've been through it. I mean, Capitol Grill's there. It's a great place. And I said, I'd be interested in taking a look at that. And he said, it last sold for like 145 or 150 million. And he goes, I think you get it for a much cheaper price than that. And I go, I sure hope so, because it's not worth that today. Right. And so I made an offer. And I think my initial offer was like $58 million. Mm-hmm. I think it was 53 million. I think that was my initial offer, 53 million. And they said, well, we got a higher offer for 58 million. I said, well, then you should sell it to that guy for $58 million. And of course, I don't know if they didn't have it. I think they did. They just didn't trust the guy's wherewithal. So I put it under contract at $53 million and 52, 53. And over the course of doing my due diligence, which is just interviewing all the tenants, inspecting all the elevators and the mechanicals and all that, I ultimately lowered the price to $46 million.
Okay.
And this time, I'm on a Disney cruise. My wife just loves Disney.
Yeah.
I should buy stock.
You're just around Minnie and Mickey every time someone's got to move.
Yeah, every time. I never thought about that. And so I'm on a Disney cruise. I have very, very low cell phone reception.
In the middle of the ocean, I would imagine.
Yeah. And I'm supposed to go non-refundable on $2.1 million this time.
Okay.
And I'm like, geez, I think I can get this thing done, but it's $46 million. It's office space. And I didn't have a lender, didn't have my equity yet.
So you asked Goofy. You're like,
hey, Mickey, can I borrow $46 million?
Yeah.
But I was like, I just have a good feeling about this one. So I went.
Why?
I don't know. To this day, it's such a nice building. Mm-hmm. The building was cash flowing really well, but there was some tenants that were going to be rolling and moving out, and I knew that. And but I just decided, I'm going to do it. So I didn't tell my wife or anything. It was a stressful trip. These darn trips keep getting interrupted by these real estate deals. And we ended up going non-refundable on $2.1 million. But then I couldn't find anyone that wanted to lend me any money. Because nobody wanted to go and lend money to downtown Minneapolis office space. I mean, the sky is falling on that type of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But I thought I had a pretty good business plan, and time will tell if I'm right. But I was able to also get under contract the parking garage across the street. And I knew that one of the benefits of being in suburbia, suburban office buildings, you get free parking. Mm-hmm. So I thought, gosh, if I could offer free or at least discounted parking in downtown, I'd have 1,200 parking stalls. That's more parking than any other building in downtown Minneapolis. Mm. And people were saying they're having a hard, this time people were like, I'm having a hard time getting people back to work because they don't want to come downtown because they've gone all these years now for 3, 4, or 5 years without having to, 2 or 3 years without having to pay for parking. That's, $200 to $400 a month. And I can't get people to come back downtown. I was like, well, what if I start taking away those objections? I can give free parking. I can give real cheap lunch options. What if I could take away, say, add some amenities that people are using? I mean, pickleball was such a big thing. What if I had a pickleball to my building? Mm-hmm. Like, what if I created this building that felt like you're working from home, but you're really working from the office? Could I use that to get people back downtown? And so that was my thesis. And so I went non-refundable on that money, and then I flew all over the country looking for debt. And I found one bank in LA that would give it to me. But I didn't know them, and I kind of felt like you have to know who your banks are. Mm-hmm. Because if things go sideways, you want to be able to work with them, not have them run you over. And long story short, I went to all my local banks that I have a lot of banking relationships, and I found a couple great banks. And I said, listen, I'm going to break this into 2 loans. I go, you bank A, take this loan, and you bank B, take this loan. it gets a little technical, but we have different collateral. And I said, why don't we do the 2 loans and together we can do this deal?
Hmm.
And I said, I'll move a whole bunch of our deposits over to your bank. And so we moved millions of dollars over to these banks. And then in return, they gave us the loans. And then we bought it. And, I just saw something last night. Downtown's having a hard time. It said in one of the reports that downtown lost 500,000 square feet of office space in 2025.
And a lot of that, as I understand, is people just need less space. So it's like people downsizing, right? And some are moving up. There's a lot of downsizing. Even people who are staying down just need less space than they used to, right?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. So the downtown lost 500,000 square feet of space. Our building, which is only 600,000 total, we signed up 100,000 square feet of new spaces last year. So,
how?
Well, there is some advantage to being the hometown boy. Like you have some insight into what's going on in the market. The CEOs of these companies. A lot of times you have relationships with the brokers more than a guy that lives in pick your city, New York, Denver, Seattle. Whatever.
So you're kind of going head to head with out of state folks to lease up
yes
office space, and it seems to be working.
The other thing is a lot of these buildings are becoming zombie buildings. I mean, I bought the building for just the LaSalle Plaza alone. If I take out the parking garage, I bought the building for $50 a foot. Okay. All of our competition, except for Wells Fargo, who also got a great price, everyone else is in their basis of over $200 a foot. So my basis is a quarter of everybody else's.
So in theory, you can charge a quarter.
Or what you're really doing is putting money back into the building.
Got it.
If you've got $200 a foot in basis in there, you don't want to be at 300 or 400 because I just bought mine for 50.
Right.
Right. So you want to have a basis as low as possible. And because our basis is low, we can spend money and not feel like we're spending over the market value. And it's that big reset. And so that's one of the key components is we've reset our basis. We were the first one to have a reset basis. I kind of wanted to be the first mover advantage. I knew there'd be others, but I wanted to be the first mover. And so that's part of it. Then we just added all these amenities. I mean, we got a podcast studio, we got pickleball. We have a driver. If you office in our building, you have a personal driver. You call up George. We have a LaSalle Plaza mobile. It's a black Escalade. Call up George. I use him all the time. He'll drive you anywhere you want to go around downtown.
Wow. And so that type of stuff are the things that you feel like are kind of winning.
It seems to be. Yeah. I mean, like I said, time will tell. Right now, I'm very happy with our progress.
Yeah.
Very, thankful that we were able to so far execute on the business plan. Our business plan was only to lease up 90,000 square feet over 6 years. Okay. We did 100 last year. So I feel like it's working.
Maybe ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
And then you guys are doing a food hall.
Yeah, so we built the food hall in Milwaukee. It's called 3rd Street Market Hall. It got rated 2nd best food hall in the nation by USA Today.
If you're listening, go look up the 3rd Street Market Hall
in Milwaukee.
Yeah, yep. It looks very cool.
Yeah, 22 different restaurants, 3 event spaces, a lot of what we call eatertainment.
Okay.
So you go there, you get your food, but there's things you do. You can play shuffleboard, you can do golf simulators, you play video games. We have a beer wall. It's been great. We built that right when COVID was coming. And that project, I won't get too many details, but that was 500,000 square feet of office space, of which only like 100 of it was occupied.
Okay.
We leased up the entire thing.
After you put in the food hall?
After COVID, after we put in the food hall.
Wow.
And so I'm like, well, gosh, that worked. And so now we're going to try to do it again here in Minneapolis. It's tough. It's a tough business.
But there's a template and like kind of a game plan that you're already following here.
Yeah. I think we toured over 100 food halls to figure this out.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a reason why I'm 20 pounds heavier than I should be right now.
I mean, seems like it was worth it.
Yeah, it was great. It was a wonderful time. And so the playbook's always evolving. I mean, as in any business. But it's been wonderful. And what we ended up doing in Milwaukee is we ended up buying all the neighboring apartment buildings, parking garages, because everybody wants to be near the food hall. And so now in Milwaukee, we own 4 city blocks that, is been well leased because of that epicenter of the food hall in the middle of it all.
So would you want to own 4 city blocks in Minneapolis around LaSalle Plaza?
Um, it's kind of what we're doing. We bought the Pence building, we bought the Lowe's, we bought obviously the 811 LaSalle, we bought the parking garage. There's 2 other things I'm working on right now. Again, time will tell if I'm the bigger fool or the guy that kind of figured it out. I don't know. The jury's still out, I guess. Yeah.
So there's this interesting thing going back to just thinking about bases, which is, you guys were able to buy this building at a huge discount from what it had sold at before, right? The city takes a hit to its tax base, but it's a win for dynamism. You can invest in the building, you get more people in. It's often hard to sort through that as just somebody who wants to see downtown do well. Do I want the lower basis, lower return on taxes, huge increase in dynamism, or is that getting into this sort of downward spiral of real estate prices and taxes and stuff? How do you look at that as just a wanting Minneapolis to succeed? Like, what should we be rooting for?
Well, you need to root for downtown, right? Because, whether you want that tax base to go down or not, it will. I mean, if owners cannot reinvest in their buildings, you become a zombie building. Eventually, everyone moves out. It's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you can't invest, then ultimately you're going to have nothing left and your taxes will be nothing anyway, right? So you kind of have to take your medicine, accept this is what it is, and hope for fresh capital. The only way downtown Minneapolis survives is with fresh capital. You need to get to a point where people believe in downtown. People want to come down there, spend money, whether it's, personally or professionally. Because if you don't have people and capital coming into downtown and reinvesting in downtown, it'll be like, I've been to Detroit many times, and Detroit for decades was struggling. It's since the 1960s. If you go there today, it's wonderful. They've done all sorts of wonderful things there. And it took a lot of, depression and tough times before that capital came back. And once it started coming, it came in droves.
Yeah. I love Detroit, by the way.
Yeah. It's a great city. The great thing is they didn't tear down a bunch of their buildings. They have some really amazing old buildings. It's incredible.
So just thinking about that, your argument is the quickest way there is some of these buildings turning over more quickly, drawing investment, being reinvested in, and then either sold or filled up or both. And that's kind of the path back for downtown.
You have to do that. Listen, I haven't been on this earth that long. I haven't studied history enough to answer, unequivocally, but I don't think that downtown really gets back on its feet again until you get new capital going down there.
Mm-hmm. If you had to guess, do you think it's going to happen and when?
Well, the challenge that I can't answer is how soon does capital come back to investing in office buildings?
Anywhere. So there's really no capital going into office right now, is what you're saying.
There's a few contrarian bettors out there. Yeah. I think we're certainly one of them.
For the most part.
But it's not a safe bet. People are always going to need housing. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a need. Okay. Industrial, certainly with all this, onshoring and stuff that's trying to take place here, there's a need for industrial. Okay. If you look at retail, people still are going to get sandwiches. They still need to get their haircuts. That's still how much office space is actually needed is unknown. And that really is the big question mark. And if I were to say AI didn't exist and we're just going to go back to where we were pre-COVID, but it'll just take a little bit of time. And maybe some of these old buildings just get repurposed or torn down. And say it'll be back 3, 4, 5 years. The problem is we just don't know what's going to happen with AI.
So you see AI as being this potential existential threat to office space writ large.
I'd be thinking you'd be foolish not to at least consider that. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much gets taken away because of AI, how much office space how much less office space is needed. But it's certainly going to have an impact. Now, it reminds me of an article I saw. is from the 1950s, early 1950s, and they were talking about this supercomputer that was coming out, some sort of mainframe or something. And they said that in 10 years, I think it said, people will only be working 12 hours a week.
And now here we are working 12 hours a week.
Yeah, because the computer was going to do so much more, so much faster. You wouldn't need to work as much, right? And so the question is, clearly that didn't happen. We just did different work. We got more done. We worked faster. We did different work. There's new jobs that are created, new enterprises, new company, completely new companies. That's what happens with AI? Does it just not decrease the demand, just changes the use? I don't know. It depends on who you listen to, but we're big believers in AI. We spend a lot of time studying and spending a lot of we subscribe to every single AI platform out there, whether it's on the legal side or just it's all the chat GPTs and Claudes and any Geminis, you name them. We subscribe to all of them. And I have a contest with our employees every single. We have a quarterly meeting, and every meeting, everyone submits their best AI idea, and the winner gets a few $1,000s every quarter. Just because I'm like, I want everyone to use AI. Everyone, we have the enterprise level ChatGPT. Everyone gets free use of that.
So you're using it in everything.
Everything. Our legal team, they use. There's a bunch of AIs. I know one of them we use a Spellbook. We try to use it in everything, and we're not trying to get ahead. We're just trying to keep up.
Yeah.
If you're not using it, you're clearly going to fall behind.
Yeah.
It's
interesting though. You on the one hand, you're like, this might wipe out our core investment, and you're like, we need to use it as much as we can.
Yeah.
Which is,
Well, you have to look at it that way. It's coming whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it'll be funny to watch this interview 10 years from now and be like, well, we're so wrong or so right. Who knows?
When the robot versions of us do this and do a much better job, it's going to be.
Yeah. Here's what I will tell you. So we own some hotels, and I woke up Saturday and I couldn't sleep. It was like 4 a.m. And so I was like, I started reading. I just read the Wall Street Journal a lot, and I was just trying to figure out what the heck's going on in the AI world. And I somehow got to this company in China that has robots they're using to do housekeeping and make the beds. So I went on and told them I want to buy 10 robots to clean our hotels, and to give me a call. Haven't called me yet. That was 6 days ago or 5 days ago now. But I do think that whenever that first robot comes out, whether it's Optimus or whoever it is that comes out, I'm going to be one of the first to buy one, because I do think it's going to change everything. We already have. We have in our hotel, we already have this. We call, what do we call her? We call her Ruby, I think's her name. It's just this vacuum cleaner that goes up and down our hallways, cleaning our hallways all the time. And, so we already have one less person doing that because we got this automated vacuum.
Ruby, if you're watching, thank you for tuning in today.
Yeah, cleaning the hotel.
Really interesting. Okay, so you're looking at all this stuff in the future. You're trying to evaluate cities. Like, you have to kind of have the pulse on all this stuff. Give me your best guess at what Minneapolis looks like in 10 years.
Oh, geez.
Just a guess. And I know that you can't know, but you're having to guess all the time. So we're looking back on this in 10 years. What is Minneapolis 2036?
Well, I hope we've cleared out all the zombie buildings, because the city's going to have a really hard time recovering until then. The perfect one is, you look at Ameriprise, beautiful building. Onward bought it, got a great price, paid $6 a foot for the building. You can't even get carpet for $6 a foot. You want the whole building for that. But there's no clear answer to what that becomes. And there's a lot more of those behind it. There's a building, I won't say which one it is, but there was an offer that came in. The lender called me on it and said their best offer is minus $3 million. In other words, they had to pay the guy $3 million to take the building. They decided not to do that. But that's literally reality on some of these things. And so you have to get all this stock cleared out. It's similar to 2008, but it's not in the fact that 2008 there was a rebound. You knew that people were still going to use office space. And I'm just not certain that people are still going to use office space here. And it's funny because I think back about this. Like, one thing that Minneapolis did wrong in hindsight is it didn't preserve a lot of its
Yeah.
buildings. I mean, most were torn down in the kind of the 50s and 60s, 70s. And you're like, why would they ever tear those down? They're glorious,
Yeah.
beautiful old buildings. But now if you fast forward to today, we're talking about tearing down buildings. Ameriprise is a perfect example. Like, I don't know what you do with it. So there's a chance that thing gets torn down. You're like, why would you ever tear it down? It's the same thing that happened, I'm sure, back in 1960. Like, I don't know what to do with this thing. It's, it's obsolete today.
Just in these cycles.
Yeah. And so I can see why, and, in hindsight, you're like, oh, I get why they tore these things down, because they didn't work.
Yeah.
And they found ways to make them work in cities like Detroit and Brooklyn and so forth. But I mean, Minneapolis didn't. And so 10 years from now, what I hope is that, gosh, we've kind of flushed out the problems. We've found either a reuse for these buildings, or we've found a new use. Maybe it's clearing the site. I hope more people are living downtown.
Yeah.
I mean,
feels like that's going to happen either way, but how many and how fast?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're in the parking business.
Yeah.
And, we own a lot of parking garages, and we have a parking company. And it's a common question. I mean, you see Waymos driving all over town right now. How does that impact it? Does that mean you live further out because you don't have to drive? I mean, I have a Tesla. Mine's full self-driving. There's many days I don't drive home. It drives me. It's wonderful.
Really? You just sit there and
push a button.
Wow.
Just start self-driving. Drives you all the way home. So, like, how does that impact us?
Okay, so you get to wave a policy magic wand, change one policy thing that you think would improve or help the city of Minneapolis. What would it be?
I mean, selfishly, what I would waive is some sort of conversion credit. So right now, there's a historic tax credit that is state level and federal level. And how it works is if you buy and renovate a building that is got some historical significance, that's 50 years or older, generally is the rule. For every dollar you spend renovating that building, you get 40% of that back as a tax credit. So in other words, you're more or less reducing your cost by 40%. So if it cost you $1 to renovate the building, now it costs you 60 cents. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what's something that we've been lobbying for, which, I don't know if it'll ever pass, but get some sort of credit from the state to do something similar, regardless of the building's 50 years or older or not. Because if you can find a way to incentivize capital, again, it's all comes about people coming back and reinvesting, and they can invest in the building, get a credit, get an economic incentive for doing that. A lot of these problems will solve themselves. Capital will come down if they see opportunity. And so if I were to give one policy change, I'd say, hey, listen, let's find a way, whether it's through some sort of long-term tax abatement or through an actual income tax credit, find a way to incentivize people to come down here and start putting money back into downtown.
Okay. You heard it. That's all we got to do.
Yeah.
All right. Before we wrap up, anything else that you want to talk about here today?
Well, I mean, I grew up here. I live here. I mean, I love the Twin Cities. I mean, it's just a wonderful place to raise your family. Summer's a little beautiful. The winter's a little brutal. But I love the seasons. It makes you appreciate it's like my, like my story. It's the summers and the winters. It makes you appreciate the summers after having gone through the winters. So I really hope that we kind of, get our house in order a little bit. Obviously there's a lot of these fraud allegations going on, and hopefully we can get all that behind us and get that money being reinvested into the community, starting to build again. I worry about, why would a corporation move here? I don't think there's a lot of good reasons right now. There's a lot of corporations that have started here. I don't know a lot that have moved here. And then you look at a lot of these other states that they're incentivizing people to move here, the corporations to move here. That brings jobs, it brings housing, it brings all that stuff. I mean, it'd be wonderful if we could find some sort of economic incentive to bring people here. So I just say, I love the cities. We're going to be here for a long time. And, obviously we appreciate everything everyone else is doing and supporting it.
Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you as well to Keely Doyle, Mike Novak, Ali Alt, and Gabe Noah for all your work behind the scenes. We will see you next time.